Are you looking for an update on the Canon RF 200 to 500mm f4, supposedly replaced by the RF 300 to 600mm f5.6, a lens that's expected to be announced soon? Hello, I'm Simon, your best source for scraping the news and rumor sites so that, well, you don't have to, freeing up your time for more important things. But today I have a new source, well, not a new source, an existing source that's come forward giving us an update on the, well, 300 to 600mm. But if you're confused by the constant changes to the 200 to 500, the f4, then the f5.6, and then a 300 to 600, and then bringing back the 200 to 500 again, give me 2 minutes to get everybody up to speed. But first, please punch that subscribe button. Thanks so much. It really means an awful lot to us. Kind of like a kid getting a pet panther for Christmas, minus all that parental regret. For years, Canon pros awaited the RF 200 to 500mm f4 L series image stabilized USM. Rumor after rumor, tease after tease, it's been rumored since midsummer 2019, before we got word in 2025 that it was cancelled. Or was it? In August 2019, Canon rumors first reported that Canon is working on an RF 200 to 500mm L zoom that we could see in late 2020. Canon Watch later agreed, also stating that a late 2020 announcement was possible. But nothing happened. Well, nothing but the annual updates continued, with the next one being in April of 2021, another in late 2022, pushing the date further into 2023, and in 2023, pushing the date further into 2024, which is where things start to get interesting. By October of 2024, it had become an f5.6 instead of an f4, and by the spring of 2025, we've now been told twice that in the last little while that Canon will release the RF 200 to 500mm f5.6. It's still an L series, it's still image stabilized and a USM, but it's no longer an f4. And this had a lot of people scratching their literal and proverbial heads. But if that tidbit of news was surprising, well, Canon rumors dropped a bombshell. As we published last month, the long-rumored Canon RF 200 to 500mm f4L image stabilized USM appears to have been shelved. In its place, sources tell us, Canon is working on a new super telephoto, the RF 300 to 600mm f5.6 L image stabilized USM, a professional grade zoom designed for wildlife and sports photographers that want the very best. So it's dead, right? The Canon RF 200 to 500mm, whether it be an f4 or an f5.6. Well, this is where it gets interesting. Just a few weeks later, Canon rumors confused readers with this article about the RF 200 to 500mm from a patent application. Canon continues its development of super telephoto and zoom lenses with another patent application showcasing a lot of different designs. The RF 200 to 500mm f5.6 L image stabilized USM design is the one that caught our attention. Okay, so Canon rumors had just finished telling us that the 200 to 500 is done with, and hail, the 300 to 600mm. So why even bother bringing up a patent application dealing with old news? I'm not so sure either. That's what's confusing people. Canon rumors went on to say this, and this will help provide a little bit more context. We're going to be getting a lens like this sometime in the next bunch of months. Will this turn out to be what we see, or will we get an RF 150 to 600mm f5.6 L series image stabilized USM? We really hope to know with a level of certainty, at least soon. Well, doesn't that certainly help muddy the waters? Well, they said a lens like that soon. That's where people are getting a little bit frustrated. I mean, after all, for years, going back to 2019, and there was even a little bit of a sprout of information in February of that year talking about the 200 to 500mm all the way up to 2024. Then it became an f5.6, and then, nope, we're done with the 200 to 500mm. Here's a 300 to 600mm. And then to throw out this article saying, hey, but there is a patent application about the 200 to 500 millimeter f5.6. Confusing people. And then to wrap up that story with, well, you know, we might get the 150 to 600 millimeter f5.6. So, Canon rumors, which is it? Are we getting the 300 to 600 millimeter f5.6, a pro level grade lens, an L series, image stabilized USM, dual nano motors, whatever, as well as a 150 to 600 millimeter f5.6 L series ISM or image stabilized USM or dual nano motors? That's why we're confused. You've been doing a great job of covering the 200 to 500, the f4, the f5.6, and then the 300 to 600. And this last story just leaves us a little bit confused. Anyhow, this is where rumors can induce headaches, severe nausea, or even vomiting. And it's why many choose to ignore them until we have an announcement, and I can't blame them. Now the rest of us love to solve a puzzle and do some sleuthing. And it's clear that Canon's in the development cycle, and until they finalize, they can, and will, in the case of the 200 to 500 millimeter, have very much changed their mind. The last thing that Canon rumors said was that the RF 300 to 600 millimeter is expected to be a constant f5.6 lens, fast enough for pro wildlife and sports work. And unlike the 200 to 500 millimeter, we likely won't have to wait 6 years to see it materialize. A reliable source said Canon is going to announce the 300 to 600 millimeter soon. This lens is meant to complement the Canon RF 100 to 300 millimeter f2.8, giving pro wildlife and sports photographers more options to the 400 millimeter f2.8 and 600 millimeter f4. As good as the 400 millimeter f2.8 is, and the 600 millimeter f4, the 300 to 600 millimeter covers both primes. With everybody caught up to date, I've got an update from a trusted source, and unfortunately, it's not good news. It's covering the 100 to 500, the 300 to 600, and the 200 to 500, and this is what the source had to say. No super telephoto lenses are planned for announcement. Canon can supply the existing orders of big whites. Lenses are all ready to go, but existing lens orders need to be fulfilled first. And while this might seem like much ado about nothing, it does continue to push that the 200 to 500 millimeter, or the now 300 to 600 millimeter, or even the 150 to 600 millimeter are being pushed further down the road. And I'm not saying it can't happen in late 2025, but the language from the source doesn't give me the warm, fuzzy feeling that we're getting that very soon announcement. Canon has had I don't know what's going on, but Canon's had problems since 2024, early 2024, getting lens and camera bodies out. When the R5 Mark II was announced, actually probably about a week before that, we started to see, I think, the R1, or it was just after, but the R5 Mark II, the R1, showed up on the list of, I call it the Canon's apologies for not delivering products page, where they had trouble just delivering stuff. And it took a while. And the R1, actually, while it was planned for a Q1 announcement, didn't start shipping until mid-November, November the 14th. The R5 II was in short supply. Again, it was supposed to be announced sooner. So while we might be getting a 150 to 600 or a 300 to 600 millimeter, until Canon can get caught up in some of their other big whites, the priority of getting the new lenses out isn't as high. And I just wonder, could this potentially give us a hiccup to the planned August announcement of the R6 III or the R7 II? Remember, this was supposed to be a July announcement, and Canon rumors came out and said, sorry folks, it's an August announcement. I think it's safe to say that based on what this source is telling me, and I'm interjecting here, I think that any Q3 announcement of any super telephoto big white lens is not going to happen. But if that's the case, you might be interested in Canon's EF 400mm f2.8. B&H currently has it for $40.99. Now this is a used lens, but $40.99 is significantly less than the 400mm f2.8 from Canon's RF mount. And it's tempting with a 9 rating, just a few scuffs on it. But it's the only one. Used 400 and 600mm primes are highly sought after and desired, as Canon's having trouble keeping up with the new ones. It's the only silver lining that I have to offer you, and if you are interested in purchasing it or any other camera gear, please consider using my affiliate links or product links down below in the description. I've got a few of them right here. These product links help support the channel. They literally help keep the lights on. I don't believe in using sponsorships. I've yet to come across a sponsorship that actually adds value to your experience. And until I can do so, I have absolutely no interest in doing it. So by you using my product links down below for Adorama, B&H, Amazon.com, or even Walmart, you're helping to keep this channel on the air, and it's very much appreciated. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great day, a great week, and hopefully we do get word of this new Canon announcement that's supposed to be taking place in August because, well, it's August now. Anyhow, thanks so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great day again, and we'll see you again soon.